What's up, everybody? It's Murk here, coming at you with NPL Season 6, Week 9, and this is going to be against Abe and his Brisbane Brelooms, not balloons, that's not a Pokemon, but Abe is sitting at the top of the division. He is 7-1 right now. He hasn't played the same opponents we have so far. Like, I've lost to the 3 best players in the entire league format. And I don't think he's played any of those 3. He played the team that Maddie has, but he didn't play with Maddie there, so that kind of makes a difference. No jabs to Dallas, if you're listening, but that's aside from the point. We are sitting at 5-3. He's sitting at 7-1, so he's obviously got a lot of headway on us, but we could definitely catch up to him because he still has to play the meat of the division, which we have already faced off against, being Gypsy and Seb, where he has not played me, Gypsy, or Seb until starting this week, so that's something to consider. Anyways, I'm not going to go super in depth on this matchup because it's very likely that we could play in playoffs, and I don't want to reveal too much of my mindset, even though both of our teams changed a fair bit after this week because it was the trade deadline. I'll go over that after this. But anyways, his team of 6 that he brought is Circuitry, Nidoqueen, Mega Altaria, Kyurem, Pelipper, and Darmanitan, and some of the other mons that he left on his bench. I don't know if I'll get them all, but he's got Kartana, which was another Z-move mon. His 3 Z-move, and Buzzwole. His 3 Z-move mons are Buzzwole, Kartana, and Circuitry, so he's got a lot of Ultra Beasts. What else did he have? He had a Poliwrath, which was one of his Carny tier mons. He had a Leavanny. He had an Alolan Ninetales. So he had the options to run like Sticky Webs or Aurora Veil, which could have been very threatening against me. Obviously, the Darmanitan's a very big threat. He's got a lot of offense on his team. That was the main thing, but he definitely did have a lot of flaws on his team, and I looked to take advantage of those. He also had Sableye, which could have been annoying if he brought it, but he didn't, so that's cool. I didn't really expect it, but he could have brought it. But anyways, 6 I am bringing are Megalodios, Togekiss, Jirachi, Suicune, Gengar, and Crocodile. Megalodios is an offensive set because he doesn't have a switch in. Togekiss is a bulkier support set because his team is very weak to Togekiss, and it also can potentially struggle killing it if he brings particular sets. I do have the Wakanberry on it so that I can take a hit from the Circuitry, and that'll help me deal with it. I'm running just a pretty bulky set, and it matches up really nicely against this team. I didn't know if I wanted to bring it because it has a lot of coverage to hit it, but it's just nice anyways because it can do a lot of damage and also sponge a fair bit of hits. Next we have Jirachi. This is a special pivot set so that I can kind of check the Kyurem and check the Altaria, and also has U-turn and with my stabs. So it does a fair bit of damage because he doesn't really have a good psychic resist outside of Sableye, which had a bad matchup since I have stuff like 2 dark types on my team, which are immune to its prankster moves now, as well as a Togekiss, which is like the hardest counter to Sableye in the entire universe, basically, along with other stuff. So this set is just nice to get some chip damage off against his team, fire off U-turns and that kind of thing. I do have the Shukaberry for mainly his Altaria and his Kyurem, but I guess for Nidoqueen if I really wanted to get rid of that right away. Next, I have a pretty cool Suicune set. It's an offensive Assault Vest meant to catch the Circuitry and the Altaria off guard by outspeeding them and hitting them with an Ice Beam or a Surf, respectively. If he was running Adamant Darm, I should outspeed it, which would be kind of cool. It's meant to just kind of pivot the Kyurem. I was seeing a lot of Assault Vest Kyurem in my matches, so I wanted something that could kind of switch into that and chip away at it, and it's just kind of a cool mon in this matchup. I could have brought some other sets, but this is the one I decided with, and it's just sort of okay depending on the matchup. But it was definitely something that was nice to pivot around his team. Then I have Scarf Gengar. He doesn't have a Ghost Resist on his team, and he's got a lot of setup threats, and Gengar outspeeds all of them, so that was a pretty nice fit. I guess he saw it a lot in his mocks, and depending on what kind of builds he has, this thing can just run him over. However, I was most certainly expecting a bulky Kyurem and a bulky Nidoqueen to sponge hits from this thing, so it's definitely a threat late, but I'm most certainly expecting a very bulky Kyurem and Nidoqueen to take those Shadow Balls, but it's just glue because it checks a Dragon Dance Altaria, it checks a Choice Scarfed Xurkitree if I get damage off on it, checks Scarfed Darm, that kind of thing. I was definitely expecting like double Scarf in this matchup. There's no real reason, in my opinion, that he would run Darmanitan against me unless it was Choice Scarf, because so much of my team can just outspeed and kill it. And I don't have the kind of bulk that you need just Ban to run over with, because Scarf is just there to chip away at me because I'm more of an offensive team. And lastly, we have Crocodile. Crocodile's here to just, throw up the rocks as usual and get some damage off on his team. He doesn't have a lot of switch-ins to it, though. I can't touch Pelipper with my set. I'm Stealth Rocks, Iron Tail, Pursuit, and EQ. And I really didn't expect the Pelipper, but I wasn't afraid of it because a lot of my team could deal with it. And Stealth Rocks are great, so I'm just going to lead right off with Crook, as he's going to lead off with his Xurkitree, and I'm just going to go for the Stealth Rocks, predicting him either to switch out or just hit me with a Dazzling Gleam, and he does go for the Gleam, showing that he is Stealth Rock here, so that's kind of bad that I let Crook take a lot of damage, but I'll take this trade because rocks are really good against his team, and if he doesn't have Defog Pelipper, which, I mean, let's be real, it's Defog Pelipper if he brought a Pelipper at all, because without his Poliwrath to abuse the rain. So I know, since he's locked into Dazzling Gleam, that my Gengar and my Jirachi can get a free switch into this, and he knows this as well, so I'm going to predict him to pull a double out, and I'm going to make a play and click Pursuit to get damage off, and basically what that's going to do is get it pretty much in range of a hit from my Scarf Gengar, which is cool. And now he's going to go out into the Pelipper, but this is a free switch into my Latios. Unfortunately, he is going to just be able to defog, so potentially just Earthquaking and knocking out the Xurkitree turn 1 would have been the play, but then I don't think I would have had as easy a chance to, I don't know how that would have gone, but it forced him to go into his Pelipper instead of one of his threats, and that lets me get in my Latios for free, and Latios picks up a kill every time it comes in, which is really great. So I can just click Psychic here, he doesn't have a resist, and everything on his team gets to it KO'd, I believe, unless he's like Max Spadef Altaria, in which case then he's less offensive and less of a threat to my team. So I do 83 with a Psychic as he U-turns, and I'm just going to predict a Scarf U-turn, so I'm going to click Roost here, as I'm going to get that right, and he's just going to go right back out into Pelipper, so I'm going to be able to Roost up and then get rid of the Pelipper. So all I'm doing out of this exchange is trading 30% of my health to get rid of his Defogger, and to scout out his Darmanitan set. So now I know he's double Scarf, which I fully expected, and the Altaria is going to come in, and I do have Ice Beam to hit this thing with, but I know it can't kill, and I have a Jirachi which can pivot into it, because there's no way that he just goes right for the Ground or Fire move. So I'm going to switch Harden and Jirachi, as he's going to pull a double into Darm, which was very smart, because it gets his Darm back in for free, and I'm going to Suicune because I can't risk my Jirachi, and I figured he might just go for the Flare Blitz, even though I know U-turn was an option. Flare Blitz was his play there, because if I want to make like an aggressive play into Latios, I just got 2-hit KO'd, and it just O-code most of my team aside from the Suicune, so that does a lot. Shows that he's Jolly Scarf though, which is good knowledge, as the Kyurem's going to come in on my Ice Beam. I was trying to catch him on a prediction, but that shows he's a max special defense Kyurem, which is very scary against me, because I don't have a lot of ways that can hit Kyurem on the physical side. He goes for Earth Power, pops my Shuka, and gets a Spadef drop, so that's a good play. Sucks for me, but I'm just going to U-turn on out here. He said in his team builder that he expected my Jirachi to be to be special, and that probably goes into why he just left his Kyurem in here, because if he expected me to be physical, then obviously he'd probably go hard into like his Xurkitree or his Darm, predicting Iron Head, and then be able to get a free hit off. So if I was Iron Head and I just clicked Iron Head and flinched him down, that would have been fantastic for me, but I'm not, so it's whatever. I'm just gonna go to Suicune. The next plays are really weird on my part. Basically, I don't have anything that wants to come into this thing, and I still don't know what his set is. I don't know if he's fast or not, so I'm just kind of trying to scout out, but I see that I'm faster than him, and that means my Crook's also going to be faster. So what I'm going to do here is basically sack off my Suicune to get my Crocodile in to get up Stealth Rocks, and now he's going to make an interesting play of going into his Altaria. Obviously, if I just went right for a Stone Edge or something, which I don't have, but it would have been smart to bring against him, this Altaria would have gotten blown back, but he's going to predict the Stealth Rocks, which, I mean, is a very fair play because I needed rocks against his team because his team is very rocks weak and I got rid of his Defogger. And now this is an okay situation for me because my Crook outspeeds this and it can do a lot of damage with an Iron Tail against this. And basically means he can't set up past and make it faster than my Scarf Gengar. However, I'm going to miss my Iron Tail, and that means that he can set up 2 Dragon Dances, and that means I cannot outspeed him with my Choice Scarf Gengar, which is, you know, very unfortunate. I'm going to hit the Iron Tail now and get a defense drop, but it doesn't matter because I don't have like a physical Scarfer or anything that can outspeed this now. So basically, I see Facade, and that means that I'm not going to outright lose the game unless I get crit, because my Togekiss can take a hit from this thing, fortunately. So I'm going to go into Togekiss. He's going to Roost up, Scout Damage, see if I'm maybe like Mono Air Slash, but no, I do have the Dazzling Gleam because Fairy's great stab against his team, and he's just going to sack off his Togekiss, or his Altaria, as I basically trade away my Togekiss for it, which is really unfortunate. The Iron Tail miss definitely sucked because if I originally hit the Iron Tail, then he would not have been able to comfortably set up a second Dragon Dance against me unless he was just making a ballsy play and predicted the miss, essentially, or just tried to roost until I missed or something like that. And basically missing the Iron Tail let him set up a second Dragon Dance, which he wouldn't have been able to, and it prevented me from revenging Altaria with my Gengar, which means that I had to essentially sack off my Togekiss to get rid of the immediate threat to my team. And that's unfortunate because Togekiss is very good against his team because I outsped the Kyurem and I could potentially 1v1 it since I'm fast and I have Roost and it's not an offensive Kyurem and I'm bulky. So that's all stuff to consider. Anyways, he's going to knock me out with a T-Bolt. I could not afford to like switch into my Latios on a Dazzling Gleam, even though if I did that, that would have been an absolute baller play, and I could have like roosted against the Kyurem or something like that, but it was a needless risk at this point, or an unnecessary risk, though it would have been cool. And I go into my Gengar to revenge, and as you see, Shadow Ball just bounces off this thing, so this Kyurem is a problem. It is a huge problem. I'm going to go hard into my Jirachi right here as I expect him to roost, and right here I'm going to go for the U-turn knowing that if he goes into Darmanitan or this Nidoqueen, I'd rather have my Latios against them, and I just didn't expect him to stay in right there because he knows that he needs his Kyurem healthy for my Gengar, and he does have the sack fodder in his Nidoqueen, so I felt pretty safe that he was not going to stay in right there as I go for the U-turn, especially since he stayed in last time and he was going to potentially predict me to stay in and attack him, and I didn't want that. Also, this play is going to let me get my Latios in so that I can completely prevent him from getting up rocks, which is fantastic. So I go back into Latios and I get to pick up my kill because Latios gets a kill every time it comes in. So I click Psychic and down goes the Nidoqueen, which is great. And now he just brings in his Xurkitree. However, I cannot take, or it is a roll to knock me out with Dazzling Gleam here, and I'm going to go into my Gengar. Now this may be an interesting play, but basically his two plays were clicking Volt Switch or clicking Dazzling Gleam, and if he Volt Switched on out, then that was a sacrifice I was willing to make. And I really didn't think he was going to do it, because if I just stayed in there and clicked another move, he lost another Mon, and he needs all 3 of his Mons to beat me at this point. And if he did Volt Switch, my Gengar could still live it, and that would be okay with me because my Gengar does not need health. So I'm going to get that play right, and now I'm just going to double right out into my Jirachi, knowing that he's locked into Dazzling Gleam, so I can go directly into this, predicting the Kyurem to come in, because I really did not expect him to sacrifice his Darm because it outspeeds my 2 bigger threats to his team. Gengar is really not that big of a threat to him at the moment because his Kyurem just blocks it completely. It can't 2-KO it, which is just silly. And here I'm going to go for the Psychic, as I'm assuming he's just predicting my U-turn, but right here, because he no longer has the Nidoqueen as a sack fodder, I can't let his Darmanitan come in or I lose him on, basically, and that's not something I can really afford. And even if he stays in with his Kyurem, I'm getting damage off on it, and if I can put him into a range where 2 Sludge Waves will knock him out from my Gengar, that's absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to Psychic, I don't get a Spadef drop, and he's going to go for the Ice Beam, and then he gets a Freeze. And this makes the game pretty much impossible to win from this point, though it is slightly possible, it's not likely. And now, because now he can just bring in his Darm, I don't get thought out, and he's just going to Flare Blitz me and knock me out. So now it is Kyurem and Xurkitree, which can come into rocks twice, or it can come into rocks once, and then once it switches out it's dead. And this Darm, which can only come in once more, versus my Latios and my Gengar. And the biggest problem now is that I don't actually have a Dragon move on my Latios, so I can't kill the Kyurem, which is not great. So what I'm going to do here is, his play, in my opinion, is to just spam Flare Blitz to keep me low so that he can knock me out with his Xurkitree, and then he just wins. So I'm going to spam Roost against him as he's going to go for the Flare Blitz here. And I'm just going to Roost right back up into health. I'm just above the range of a Scarf Dazzling Gleam, and he's going to make a nice read and go directly into his Xurkitree, predicting me to Roost. So now what he can do is just click Dazzling Gleam, spam Dazzling Gleam until he dies, or something happens, and then what could happen here? So if he spams Dazzling Gleam, then I Roost it off, and then I go into my Gengar, and then he just has the free switch into Kyurem, and then I don't have anything that kills Kyurem, and he wins the game with that. Or he, the other thing he can do is he can crit me with Dazzling Gleam and knock out my Latios and take away any possible chance of winning this game from me. So like, unless I crit him here with Dazzling Gleam of my own, if I crit his Kyurem with Dazzling Gleam, I can win the game. But I mean, is that really going to happen? You'll see right now that it's really not going to happen. So if I was Focus Blast, I could have won the game. I'm actually going to double check that. Hold on. Okay, so I ran the calc, and if I was Focus Blast, I actually did win this game here. However, locking myself into Focus Blast against his team just seemed like a horrible idea, because he has the Nidoqueen, which can come in off of that. He has the Altaria, which can come in off of that. He has the Buzzwole, which could have come in. Choice locking myself into a fighting move just wasn't a great option against him, and I thought that Fairy was better combined coverage against his team. So because of that, I'm not going to be able to win this game because I don't get a crit. And I still would have had to hit 3 Focus Blasts in a row to clinch it. Focus Blast was a guaranteed knockout from there, so I might have messed up, but in my prep, but I really don't think so, because this was such a situational matchup that, yeah, I don't know. So I guess Focus Blast would have been better here, but he's just going to be able to Roost up, make sure that, I don't know what he was trying to do, in case I was like bulky Scarf, that he could knock me out and not get 2-hit KO'd. So he was just doing what he had to do to win. Despite the hacks, this was still a very close game and a very well played game on both parts. It's not like he was just throwing his Mons around and like clicking random buttons and making stupid plays and just getting lucky. No, Abe played very well, and I also believe I played very well, and the outcome of the match showed that, since it was just a 2-0. However, the hacks in this game pretty much made it impossible for me to win, whereas if it was a straight up clean game, then I definitely would have had a shot to win. I think, honestly, the biggest hacks was probably the Iron Tail miss, because Togekiss would have been extremely valuable for me late game, but also obviously my Jirachi getting frozen sucked. But at the end, Latios getting crit didn't matter the most because I couldn't kill his Kyurem. However, it was just kind of icing on the cake and made me feel bad inside. So that's going to be the game. It was a very unfortunate game for me. I definitely think I could have won this game. I don't think I would have won this game 100%, because it was a very volatile matchup and Abe's a very good player. But I would have had a chance, and I think a pretty good chance to win, but the hacks unfortunately made it so that no play I could have made would have won me this game. So that's very unfortunate. No knock on Abe, he's played great. He's been doing great all season, and I fully expect to see him in playoffs if we're going there. And this, for me, it just makes my playoff run a little more worrisome, because now I'm at 5-4, and I'm basically fighting it out with 4 people for the 3rd and 4th place spot, because there's 3 people at 5-4, and then there's Shoddy, who's 4-4, who's going to play his week 1 game last, because the whole jokey po game thing where he like quit at the beginning of the season. So it's going to be a very, very interesting last 3 games of the season, to say the least. I can't remember it. Well, actually I can. There's one time where my chances of being in playoffs has been decided in the last few games of the season, but this is a little different because the competition's stiffer, and for my last 3 games I'm going to be playing Shoddy, Trev, and then Razor. Obviously Shoddy and Trev are a little more threatening, but Razor is definitely not the guy that I'm going to sleep on, and I don't think I have to win all 3 of my games to make it into playoffs. However, I kind of like to, I would like to, and I want to put myself in a position where I don't play Gypsy round 1, because that's the guy I think I have the worst matchup against, and I'd much rather play Seb or Abe, honestly. So it's really interesting how this is going to turn out. Right now the standings are that Abe is 7-1 in first place, Seb is 6-3 in second, I am 5-4 in third place, and Gypsy is 5-4 in fourth place. I have like 1 differential point above Gypsy, so it definitely shows that this is going to be a very interesting end of the season. And to make it even more interesting, I want to show you, I'm just going to talk about some of the transactions I made. So this was also the free agent and trade deadline week, so this was last time we could make moves to our team. So I made 2 transitions or changes to my team. The first one was trading away Greninja to Blake in exchange for Keldeo. Now, with losing Greninja, I lose some speed. However, I still have Swellow, which was faster than it. And in return, I get another really good Pokemon in Keldeo. Keldeo is going to be a Z-move user for me. It's a lot bulkier than Greninja. It's stronger than Greninja. It gets less options offensively, but it's very, very strong in a Pokemon that I definitely am happy to have on my team, especially, and it puts me back into a bulkier offensive approach, which I was kind of straying away from when I got stuff like Gengar and Greninja on my team, so this makes me a little bulkier. And the other thing was I dropped Klefki for Whimsicott. Now Klefki, as you saw in my very unfortunate week 8 loss, I mean, it was bad fortune, but Klefki was a very big liability to me, and it having Klefki on the team just kind of changes the playstyle, because it's just kind of a dud. It just sits there and it gets up spikes, and it takes away from the offensive pressure that I'm trying to put on, which is not what I want. I originally drafted this team as a double wish passer, and it's kind of strayed away from that, so I'm going to try and get back to the roots of that. No guarantees that I'll bring that strategy, but I think Whimsicott's a really nice addition, because it's a very annoying Pokemon that's very good at supporting me, and I really like that. So that's pretty darn neato, kiddos. Anyways, that's going to be the game. That's going to be what I did. So that'll be interesting. Also, it gave me a grass type, which I was missing since I traded away Rose a while ago. So I think the team's a little better now. It's a little different. I don't have any kind of hazards aside from Stealth Rocks, but that's totally fine with me. I'm not a huge hazard stacker guy here. But it's definitely been an interesting season, and it's going to get a whole lot more interesting since we get to play Shoddy next week, who we've had a fair bit of history against. I'm 1-2 against him, but I tossed him in the finals, so expect something like that. Hope you guys enjoyed this. See you next time. Peace, bye-bye.